This week, we're recapping all the major news surrounding Microsoft's potential Activision Blizzard deal. This is the Good Game Bad Game podcast.
This is a song I wrote about the Good Game Bad Game podcast. Good Game Bad Game podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and with me is a man who was over 6,000 miles away from me, by far the furthest we've ever been from each other, and my heart ached because of it. It's my co-host, Mike. Mike, ciao. How are you?
Salvo. Wow. I didn't think about that. We were really far. That was as far as we've ever been away from each other. Ever.
Yes. Yeah. And
Even before we knew each other.
I double checked. Yes, even before we knew each other, I double checked to make sure that Hawaii to like PA wasn't for somehow further, because you kind of forget about where Hawaii is.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that's not further.
It's about 4.5 miles.
Hours?
That's it. Yeah. So you were on quite the trip, but I still have to ask. Tell me about your weekend games.
Just don't. I regretted not bringing my Vita with me.
You could have been like me, the random person in 2023 with a Vita on public transportation or on a form of transportation.
Yeah. But instead, I was the guy who was just not sleeping on the plane, listening to a guy who looked suspiciously like Kanye yelling at the person in front of them for reclining their seat.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. Yeah, I was across the pond, as the kids say, or the adults, or the boomers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a lot of different people say that.
Yeah, a lot of people say it. It's true.
A lot of people.
I do have a wee bit of a gaming surprise, though.
Oh, I'm excited.
On my lunch today, I tried out Atomic Heart.
Oh, okay.
Because I forgot that came out yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it just
Being Tuesday. And did not play very long. Because, of course, as soon as we got back from our trip, we also started doing a little construction on our house to prepare for you visiting. And so my Series X isn't set up. But I tried to stream it on my One X, and that did not go well. So I did not really play it. Like I would literally saying that I played it for 10 seconds is probably very accurate. It was not playing well at all. Looked awful. So I'm like, I'm just going to wait and give it the justice it deserves.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking maybe these next 2 weeks, staying committed to playing games on my One X, because that's, I think, the only system in my house that's set up.
Okay.
And the Switch. And just working on some backlog stuff. I almost played oh my god, what's it called?
Madden.
Well, I played Madden, duh. Oh my god, I literally just had it.
I'm trying. Let me think. Is it an Xbox game?
It is an Xbox game. It was
Forza.
No. Rise Son of Rome.
Rise Son of Rome.
I think it was an Xbox One like launch game.
Oh wow. I have no recollection of this game.
It was like pretty well received by the people who actually played it. I just don't think a lot of people played it. But it's a Microsoft exclusive game. But I figured since I just got home from Rome, I would give it a go and see how accurately they depicted it. So maybe I'll play that this week. Maybe I'll play Sunset Overdrive. Maybe I'll play any of the Tomb Raider games. We'll see. Maybe.
Literally any of them.
Maybe. Well, any of them but the first one. Maybe I'll play nothing.
Yeah. I'm seeing let's see. Just looking at Google, this has a 9 out of 10 on Steam. 95% of Google users liked that.
Yeah,
Everybody hated that. Everyone will remember that. I'm trying to see if I can find like Metacritic or something, but it looks like it's like seems like it has some decent reviews.
yeah.
And I have
I
again
think
no recollection of this, but this is also uh uh definitely during the time where I was paying no attention to Xbox stuff. Like the only thing I knew about with Xbox was Halo and Gears, basically.
mhm.
6.8 out of 10 on IGN, 7 out of 10 on Xbox Era. So pretty good across the board. It looks like. There you go. I like that. Very thematic. Very on
Yeah,
the nose.
that's what I'm saying. So we'll find out.
I look forward to it.
I'll just you know, see if I can get massacred by the Catholics.
That should be doable.
Yeah. They should just start the game with that and be like, listen, you're not gonna like how this ends. Enjoy
uh,
this one Coliseum fight. Because after it, it's not gonna be here
yeah.
again.
um. Well, cool. Yeah, I knew you weren't gonna have much of an update, but honestly, more of an update than I was expecting. So
Yeah. It's gonna be a weird couple weeks in gaming for me. Um, will I cave and get Metroid Prime Remastered? Maybe. Did I already do that? Maybe.
dude, oh my god. It looks so good.
Yeah, I watched more like comparison videos of it
Mm-hmm.
and just what they did. Like people are basically saying they should have called it a remake, not a
Yeah, that's what I
remaster.
was about to say. Like literally so many people are like, this is a remake, not a remaster.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So that almost has me tempted.
Yeah. I guess
That might be
that's
one of those things I get like a physical copy of too, because if I've learned anything about Metroid, it's when you have a chance, get a physical copy.
yes. Yes. Thankfully they said they weren't doing a limited release, but also part of me is like, it's only $40, so should I just scoop it
Right.
now? But yeah. I feel like that says a lot about like how Nintendo builds their games. If like doing like what would effectively be considered a simple remaster instead of a more difficult overhaul remake, and for it to look as good as it does, you know what I mean? Like that means that it translates really well. Like anything, you know, I guess like backwards compatible wise translates really well to like the new hardware, or like the hardware isn't like such like a like weird or different jump. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
because I feel
Which
like this
what
always happens with like with Nintendo again remasters where like they end up like looking good. And I think I'm trying to think somebody compared it. I could have sworn somebody compared this remaster versus another game's remake, and like the Metroid Prime remaster looked better.
run that by me one more time?
Somebody compared a somebody compared the Metroid Prime remaster to another game that got a remake. I don't remember what the game was, but like
But not a Metroid game.
no.
Okay.
Honestly, it might have been the GTA stuff weren't remakes, right? Those were all remasters technically. The ones that like just came out like Vice City and all those. Uh,
Um
I think they were
I think
remasters.
they're technically remakes because the like control scheme changed.
Okay.
And I think they made it like brought in some elements from the more modern GTAs.
So
But
it might have been that, I don't know. But like yeah, regardless, it looks amazing.
I mean, that is a really good point though, because I think the GTA games that were remade, remastered, whatever, are technically newer games than Metroid Prime.
Hmm.
And yeah, Metroid Prime just holds up so well. I mean, you can play Metroid Prime on the GameCube
I
and it
plan to.
still holds up.
I plan to.
Yeah,
I bought it. Dude, they
nice.
showed they showed so much shit that I've bought physically, and they're like, "Oh, this is getting a remaster, or this is getting a remake, or this is getting added to Nintendo Switch Online." And just the entire time, I was cursing them. It's like, "Fuck
There's like
you!" But this is a,
now you decide to listen.
but I was like, "But this is a great move," and I'm still happy I got the physical copies of stuff anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, like, dude, like that was the other thing that amazed me was people showing the comparisons. I'm like, Metroid Prime original is on the left versus the remaster. I'm like, dude, the original still looks really good. How is this a
Yeah.
2001 or 2003 GameCube game? It's nuts.
It was a 2001 GameCube game.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've been playing the one on Wii U, which is really just a port,
Mhm.
and like that plays so well. And other, I could leave the motion controls, but like even those are still really good. Um, but it is interesting, it's you were talking earlier about, you imagine it's not that much different as far as like as far as backwards compatibility goes, or maybe that's not exactly what you said, but like it kind of just shows that their games are easily backwards compatible. Feel
Yeah.
free to
Yeah,
correct my verbiage.
yeah, no, but basically that they're like built in such a way that it's easy to like bring them forward and like make like the necessary like updates to them to just make them like visually look better and like a little bit smoother and stuff like that, but not need to do like a complete overhaul that you need to do
S-
for a remake.
So I think they would have had to do a complete overhaul because the GameCube used technically an AMD processor and the Switch uses an Nvidia processor.
Listen, I don't claim to understand these things.
No,
I felt like I just got my head wrapped around the difference between a remake and a remaster. Don't do this to me.
no, I'm not calling you out on it. I'm just saying, like, I do think they would have had to like rebuild this from
Yeah,
scratch.
but that would make it a remake. So now they're confusing me actively.
Right. But they're saying it's not.
Right, right. Yeah, either way, it's nuts. It's nuts. You're gonna cave. Have you gotten it yet?
No.
Okay, well you're going to.
I'm sure I will get a physical copy of it just to have a physical copy of it.
You're not fooling anybody.
If it
Uh,
means they'll make Metroid Prime 4, I
oh,
will rebuy the trilogy even though I have it.
oh, it doesn't mean that whatsoever. They don't give a rat's ass about giving you
Mm.
Metroid Prime
They're
4.
like,
They hate
"Be
you.
happy we gave you the first one."
Be happy we give you the first one again. Um, well, since you didn't play a ton of games, let me get you caught up to speed on what I've been playing.
Please do.
I I told you Pure Farming got suddenly put on the chopping block for PlayStation Plus, so I told myself I had to get the platinum in that. Worse than Farming Simulator, I
Very
will
nice.
say, but I did get the platinum. Um, then I was trying to clean up some stuff, so I jumped over to Dragon Quest Builders 2, a game that I'd started playing I don't know how long ago at this point, and then it just got sidetracked by I think like Pokemon and all these other games, and but finished that, platinum that. I've been slowly chipping away at WWE, which leaves PlayStation Plus in March when the new one comes out.
Nice.
Platinum that, had to do it to him, and then playing more Hades, and I started playing Horizon Forbidden West again. Um, started playing the like PS4, started streaming that. Um, one to get the platinum, and two because the DLC I'm trying to time it out so that I get through like the story again and have that all um right before the DLC comes out so that way I can get the DLC and enjoy that. And just playing that again, I'm just like, dude, this game is so good. Like it plays so good. And now, granted, I am playing on the easiest difficulty, so like literally just like hitting a machine's weak spot, it goes down so fast, which is honestly super satisfying. But um it just is so smooth and yeah, plays so well. And I just really forgot how much I truly enjoyed that game, especially because it was I truly believe so much better than the first one. I feel like they improved so much and really learned from the first game. Um, Absolutely loved it. And so started playing that again. And then because I'm traveling now, um, I've been playing Final Fantasy IV. I did bring my Vita, so I learned from your mistake without you even telling me.
Smart. Smart.
It was always the plan. But yeah, that's it. That's everything. Um, which I feel like was still a lot. I also found out right before we left. I was just on the PlayStation Store. I don't think I told you this. I don't know if I said it on the podcast at all, but I just bought Cult of the Lamb and Nobody Saves the World. Can't remember if I
Mhm.
said that or not.
I don't you had mentioned that you would really wanted to play it, I think, but I don't know that you
Yeah.
had pulled the trigger on it.
So both of them were on sale during I think like the double discounts or whatever deal that they were running. And I was just like, they were both like $15. I was like, realistically, these aren't going to get much lower than that. And like I know they're like I'm gonna play them like soon. Like basically like after I beat Hades, which is like my every other stream, I play that, and then like in between those I play Horizon. But like once I'm done with Hades, I'll just start Cult of the Lamb, and then once I'm done with Cult of the Lamb, I'll start Nobody Saves the World as like my in between game. So basically, I want to just always have like a uh, roguelike or roguelite going as one of my games. So I bought both of those and got to keep getting through Hades, but cannot wait to get to them. But
Nice.
otherwise,
What's jam-packed 2 weeks? Or
that
just this
was
past week?
yeah, that's probably that yeah, that would have all had to have been like my past 2 weeks. So
Gotcha.
from before even doing Chris's episode um, to now. So honestly, that's probably like the least amount of games, except in the summer, I guess, that I've probably played over a 2 week span here of late. I feel like I've been playing so many, but um, yeah. So this
And
week,
yet, one as Chris still had the audacity to question the games you play.
I loved how he said that like that London and I he grouped us together and said that both of us can just find the good in a game. And I was like, well, now hang on a second. I did play the Book of Unwritten Tales too, and I could not find any good in that except the platinum. um, I don't know, but the one thing I will say is that the like again the challenge that nobody has given me but myself to like play these games and try and platinum them before they leave PlayStation Plus is such a fun and like satisfying because I love getting platinums, but like it's
Mm,
so fun and like it reminds me so back when I used to upload on YouTube, I used to do a series called PlayStation Plus Roulette and
I
just
remember.
yeah. Yeah, well I'm letting the kids know.
Yeah.
Where I would, PlayStation Plus you get 2 games, 3 games every month. And so I had this huge back catalog of just games that I was never going to get around to playing unless I found some gimmicky way to force myself to. I still won't. And so basically just put them all on a spreadsheet and would do a random number generator. And I got to play just some of the one weirdest games. And two, just actually find games that I was like, wow, this is actually genuinely fun. Which is just it's cool. So I'm happy to give myself that challenge and again get the reward of a platinum for my hard work in doing it. Uh I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like that would be fun if somebody made like somebody probably has, but basically like a an actual like PlayStation Plus roulette wheel or like a Game Pass Ultimate roulette wheel where it's like every single game that's on the service that you just like don't know about and like you hit go, it spins and it gives you a game and it's like, okay, that's the game I'm gonna play. And you download it and you start playing it. Granted, we both have backlogs that are so large that maybe we should just work on those instead of giving ourselves other random games to start.
Perhaps. Or
Or,
we could not.
yeah, which has been our, I think, motto for the past how many years. I'm going to work on my back catalog.
27.
Proceeds to add 27 games. Um, so it's been a while since we one talked and two talked about specifically the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. Probably about a month on the dot, if I'm thinking about things correctly. But a lot has come out this week revolving around it, and to kind of update since because I feel like this isn't strictly from this past week. I want to say it was probably over a week, if not a couple of weeks ago at this point. But um, specifically, it was the European branch that they need, right? Or was it the UK? Or is it both?
Ooh. I'm trying to remember because there was something in the EU that let it pass or said they would let it pass. I thought it was the UK that was blocking it outright.
So, all right, yeah, I have it here. The deal is currently getting approved. This is from gamesindustry.biz in an article by Christopher Dring. As it happened, Microsoft's Activision Blizzard press conference in Brussels, which is going to be some of the other stuff that we're covering. But one of the main points that he highlights is the deal is currently getting approved from global competition regulators, but three main regulators in the US, which is the Federal Trade Commission, Europe, the European Commission, and the UK, the Competition and Markets Authority, are currently opposed to the deal. So it's all three. It's the US, Europe, and the UK that are all currently blocking the deal in one way or another. So FTC has taken Microsoft to court. For UK and Europe, it says that Microsoft needs to just convince them that the deal is not anti-competitive, and so that's again what a lot of the stuff that we're going to be covering today kind of highlights. So that I feel like the UK and the European one were ones that we didn't know for sure that they were like opposed to it back when we last talked about this. But I think when we first talked about it was right when the US when the FTC started the process of taking Microsoft to court.
Mhm.
So this past week, and I want to be really specific about what Brad Smith tweeted, and then we'll kind of like dive into more so I guess like the reality of the situation. Um, so Brad Smith tweeted, and in the tweet he said, "We've now signed a binding 10-year contract to bring Xbox games to Nintendo's gamers. This is just part of our commitment to bring Xbox games and Activision titles like Call of Duty to more players on more platforms." And then attached to that tweet, excuse me, is an image where it says Microsoft and Nintendo have now negotiated and signed a binding 10-year legal agreement to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo players the same day as Xbox with full feature and content parity, so they can experience Call of Duty just as Xbox and PlayStation gamers enjoy Call of Duty. We are committed to providing long-term equal access to Call of Duty to other gaming platforms, bringing more choice to more players and more competition to the gaming market. So I think the difference in the tweet text of saying Xbox games versus the actual like what would you call that? Like the actual press release where it specifically says Call of Duty is somewhat interesting. Like that, there's a disparity there. Leaves a little open to interpretation. Like, did he just mean to say Call of Duty? Maybe, but I don't think so. Right? Like, I'm sure knowing Xbox that there are plans to try and bring as many of their games to other consoles where it makes sense to do so.
I think in the context of this statement, it's specifically Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard games. Um, that being said, I agree that I think Xbox does have a vested interest in bringing more Xbox games to Nintendo consoles. I don't think they need to have a 10-year agreement to say, yes, we're going to bring Xbox games to Nintendo. I think this was really just specifically for Call of Duty, and people were trying to read the non-existent tea leaves.
Mm-hmm.
But the one common commentary I've seen on this is like, you really expect Call of Duty to run on the Switch?
Dude, okay, yep, because this
And
is like the
it's
first thing I wanted to talk about.
okay, well, then we'll talk about it. And it's like, you really expect this deal to be passed by the next Call of Duty and like Microsoft have time to develop for the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I should say Activision have time to develop, but Microsoft published to the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're at the end of the Switch's life cycle. Something new is coming out. I'm sure it's going to be able to run Call of Duty.
Right. Right. Exactly. Literally exactly what I was gonna say. Um, that's what so many people weren't like taking into consideration. Uh,
We
and,
literally talked about the last Nintendo Direct. All these same people were like, "Oh, this Nintendo Direct really points to there being a Switch predecessor."
right. And then
Like, did you
and
already fucking forget?
yes, to for the sake of discourse, yes, they forgot. Uh no, but you're absolutely right. You know, we're all but certain that that this is the case, right? That like a new Nintendo console is going to be coming. And I think that's the other important thing about it is that it doesn't say like specifically to the Switch. It says to Nintendo console. So whatever the Nintendo console is at the time, they are going to work to get Call of Duty on it. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So, um,
Alternatively,
yeah,
alternatively, hear me out.
I'm listening.
A new tier to Switch Online that gives you access to Game Pass so you can stream Xbox games inclusively
Mm-hmm.
and Call of Duty to your Switch.
Mm-hmm. I could see it. I could see it. Sure, something along those lines, right?
That's all I want out of life right now, besides Metroid Prime 4, is to be able to play Xbox cloud games on my Switch.
That's an interesting like one. Like that's your second highest one.
In my entire life, yeah.
All right, yeah.
Metroid Prime 4 being the first.
Right.
Do I need to
Okay.
reiterate again?
Yes. One more
Okay. There's now a new
time.
one that's above both of those, and that's
Uh
for you to stop questioning me on this.
oh. Okay. Um. Yeah, I thought the discourse around that was really funny. And yeah, again, I just think like it's so wild to me that these three um large branches that Xbox needs to like convince in some way um like don't see this uh you know as again like a huge win. Literally they're bringing Call of Duty. What, the last Call of Duty that was on a Nintendo product, I want to say was Black Ops on the Wii?
Oh, I
Uh,
think Black Ops 2
really?
was on the Wii U.
Wow. Okay. I for one am shocked. But,
I could be wrong. I am not someone who frequently shopped for
still
Call of Duty on Nintendo consoles.
still we're probably talking the past what, 8 Call of Duty titles have not been anywhere near a Nintendo product.
Right.
So, then whatever, most Nintendo gamers probably you could argue don't care about Call of Duty. But, when you consider the fact that like for a while there the Switch was the cheapest way to get into current gen games.
Mhm.
Um Albeit you would have to miss out on certain ones, but like they have their whole huge catalog that you're already busy with. The fact that you can add in these other like relatively large games to that library is huge. Microsoft knows what they're doing. Um, so that was the first kind of like look. Look at what we're trying to do, right? It's been well documented that they've been trying to do the same thing with Sony, right? Set up some sort of deal to say like, hey, you don't need to worry. Like I don't understand how 10 years is worth like getting into this piss contest about, right? Like
Right.
the fact that it's not like forever. 10 years is so long that like you could get up in arms about 10 years and Call of Duty could be done in 5 with like some new hot thing out. And then you like burned all of these bridges, which is they, still what they're doing regardless, right? For no reason. So that's for one funny. Um but we know that's well documented. They also came out and said that uh Nvidia also supports the Activision Blizzard to Microsoft deal. And what help me out here? What is did they sign a specific deal with Nvidia?
Yeah, they have a 10-year deal as well. Same exact deal, but to bring it to GeForce Now.
So I mean,
That, to me, I don't know. I was going to say that to me feels like a non-starter because, like, I'm fairly certain GeForce Now just runs Windows games.
mhm,
Um, but I mean, I'm sure there was, like, something that Microsoft could do to block, like, some sort of licensing, digital licensing to block it from being run on a virtual machine.
right.
But, I mean, the significance of that deal is, like, I think it was the CMA in the UK that said, like, Xbox is gaining dominance in cloud gaming as well. And GeForce Now is by far the Microsoft's biggest competitor in the cloud gaming space, and they support it. So that kind of shoots that argument down. So I think
Mhm.
that's the significance of that.
Yeah. Um Again, it all of it just shows that like they're not intentionally, at least for the next 10 years, uh doing anything to maliciously keep Call of Duty away from anybody. That's not in their
Mhm.
plan. It's not in they don't feel it's in their best interest, and I think a lot of people would agree with that statement. Um so again, Brad Smith has been um kind of in the news a lot because he's been the one leading these discussions, and I think he has done a beautiful job highlighting some very key and specific statistics, two of which that I really want to cover, that I think uh should be it, right? Like I don't think anything else should have to be said. Um the first of which, and this is technically multiple, but he pointed to the PlayStation versus Xbox market. All right. In Europe, it's 80 to 20 in favor of PlayStation. In Japan, this blew me away. In Japan, it's 96 to 4 in favor of PlayStation. I mean, honestly, the 80-20 in Europe is shocking. And then
Mhm.
globally, it's 70-30 in favor of PlayStation. And end of 2022 sales, 69 to 31, nice, in favor of PlayStation. I mean, who's the leader, right? Who
I
who
haven't decided how. Go ahead.
who should be scared about the other? Uh, you know, and you're telling me with your global uh, you know, 20% over 500 lead that you have, you're telling me that Call of Duty is going to be alone enough to cover that gap? Come on now.
I'm not sure how I felt about that slide. I spent a lot of time thinking about it today,
Mhm.
and I understand why they did it this way, but I feel like it's ignorant to exclude Nintendo from that. I get why
Well,
they did it.
and I think the reason they're excluding Nintendo is simply the fact that, like, Nintendo's not the one kicking up dirt about this. Um, Sony, they're the ones who are making a big stink.
Right, but they also don't own 80% of the gaming market share in the EU.
Sure, but when it comes down to PlayStation versus Xbox and those numbers, that's a great point.
It just feels like a red herring to me. I get why they're doing it, but
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's a fair call out. But again, I think when it comes down to it, it's like PlayStation is specifically attacking Xbox over this. Right? They're
mhm,
specifically going after Xbox, saying that Xbox is threatening them in a, anti-competitive way when look at the position that Sony is in compared to Xbox.
right.
So I think it's more than fair. Um, but I do agree and completely understand what you're saying. It'd actually
It's
be
a
interesting to see, how much does Xbox get dwarfed even further when you add Nintendo into this, right? I mean, we didn't even talk about it, but like the Switch just passed the uh PS4, right? So they only are
mhm.
behind the PS2 in terms of consoles and the Game Boy line in terms of handhelds. That's nuts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Eh,
again, I think you add Nintendo and Xbox looks even smaller.
I guess the point is by not including Nintendo, like, and I don't know if this is why they did it. This is just my interpretation of the market. A lot of people own a Nintendo console and then PlayStation or Xbox.
Sure.
So I guess if you take out, I'll call it like that complementary device being Nintendo, that is the market. You know, people who own a Nintendo console 80% of the time are going to buy a PlayStation over an Xbox. I don't know.
I
It was a weird slide.
I just think that when it comes to the competition, these two only focus on each other and they just let Nintendo fuck off and do whatever they want. And Nintendo has just positioned themselves literally perfectly in all of this.
Mhm.
Like they literally just do their own thing and they're untouchable. They're on a different they're on like a completely different life cycle. They just do it their way and they almost they're the ones who almost don't have competition, you know?
Yeah, and now imagine if they're gonna get these big AAA games in Call of
Right.
Duty. Like, imagine if this deal goes through and Microsoft doesn't do the 10-year deal with Sony. All of the competition authorities accept it, let it go through, and deal is done. Microsoft owns Activision. And then Sony comes and they're like, "Oh yeah, so about that 10-year deal," and Microsoft tells them to fuck off, and there's not going to be any Call of Duty games on PlayStation ever again, but you can get it on Switch. Like, Nintendo had nothing to lose by accepting that deal. Honestly, no one had anything to lose by accepting that deal.
Right. PlayStation continues to not have anything to lose. Just accept the deal.
Right. Nothing is going to change. I guess the fear is, this is another revenue stream for Microsoft and, they could create new IPs, but, like, Microsoft could buy Sony as a whole 10 times over if they wanted to.
Right. Right. When it comes to like pure value.
Yeah.
Um, no, you're 100% right. Uh, the other thing that I specifically wanted to call out that Brad Smith brought up that I think is pretty brilliant is the disparity between the two consoles and the number of exclusives.
Mhm.
So, um, Brad Smith, this is insane to me. If I'm reading and if I understand this right, this is crazy. So, Microsoft has 58 games that are on PlayStation.
Mhm.
Sony has 2 on Xbox.
Out
Sony
of how many exclusive games?
has 286 exclusive titles, and apparently Microsoft only has 59 like that are exclusively just on Xbox, meaning Microsoft's total is 117 if I just did dumb math right. 117 and PlayStation has 288. And 2 of those 288 are on Xbox. Again, if I'm understanding this right, and 58 of the 117, almost half of Xbox are on PlayStation. And he said, "We're happy to make sure that there's a 59 with Call of Duty and no doubt others." Like I just loved that little like piece right at the end.
Mhm.
Um like yeah. Uh Mostly what you see is a cross-platform strategy for Microsoft even before this deal. And he's right. Like it's what they've been doing and it's been working. Why would this and a game of this caliber be the thing that that suddenly changes that? Starfield makes all the sense. Hell, new Fallout or new Elder Scrolls game, ton of sense. A massive multiplayer game, nah. You want to get that into as many hands as possible because you know it's going to sell like hotcakes,
Right.
right? Like think about it. Like how many sales did Skyrim have? Which I
All
mean,
I can
that's
tell you is that I bought it 4
yeah. I
times
was
and
gonna say
haven't played it once, so
that has been out for a long ass time.
yeah, and especially, the potent point that you made is that it's a multiplayer game. I mean, no one's playing Call of Duty for the story mode, and there's just, like I feel like it only negatively affects the players if you don't have a large player pool. So why wouldn't you want it everywhere?
Right. Um. Let's see. Skyrim apparently has 30 million total sales. Um. Which again is across now how many different iterations of the game technically.
Mhm.
So, uh, you know, even if you only get a third of that because you release Skyrim 2, just on your console, like it wasn't ever going to sell that much anyway. So fuck it. Use that as an excuse to try and get somebody who typically wouldn't have bought an Xbox to buy an Xbox. But Call of
Right.
Duty, nah, like you're gonna like piss off so many people. You're making it hard at that point, which isn't that's not Microsoft's way. It's gonna be really funny when Destiny 3 or I don't think it's gonna be Destiny 3, but like whatever Bungie's next game is right now that they're under PlayStation, it's gonna be really funny if PlayStation tries to make that just a PlayStation exclusive because
And they will.
nobody will bat an eye at it because nobody will care because that's just always what they do, and and people who were playing Destiny on Xbox will be upset, and they'll say like, "Wow, go figure." And then you get your pony fanboys coming out saying like, "Well, what? This is just our Halo," and it's so annoying because it's like, no, you just took a game that had a base elsewhere and you just bought it up and did the exact thing that you didn't want them to do for Xbox. Um,
And
I think a multiplayer game definitely stings more than what is an overtly single player experience.
right, and you're gonna have, like, in that specific scenario, you're gonna have PC players too that are affected because it's a
Right.
massive PC game. And what's Sony gonna do? Say, "Oh, we're gonna release it on console, and in 2 years we'll port it to."
Right. Yeah.
Like, no, that's still not gonna fly.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it'll be interesting. I can't say for certain that's what they'll do, but I can say with high confidence. And look, that's just my opinion. You know, somebody can absolutely feel more impacted by. Technically, I would say I am personally more impacted by Elder Scrolls uh, only releasing on Xbox than I am Call of Duty potentially only being released on Xbox. But I do feel for the general gaming population. It's kind of obvious which one would be more of an annoyance and rub people the
Mhm.
wrong way. So
Yeah, I mean, as far as, like, going back to Destiny, I feel like that was already a foregone conclusion. Like, the next Destiny or Destiny equivalent is only gonna be on PlayStation. So, like, to then make this argument, like, that they think Call of Duty is only going to be exclusive to Xbox just makes no sense.
dude, and I think the thing that pisses me off the most about this is that they're solely focused on one game, right? They're solely focused on Call of Duty, and it just like it annoys me because for me, I would be more upset at the overall library that they're able to in just one fell swoop, snap of the fingers, all just Xbox exclusives. I'd be more worried about the volume than simply Call of Duty. I get it. Call of Duty is a huge pull, but
Why are they not getting mad about, like, the fact that Xbox has already used Crash Bandicoot in marketing material?
right, right. Like that's to me the thing that's like, and again, even then, like they have no right to, but like that would be the thing that I'd be more like, hang on now. You're telling me you just got 30 IPs or whatever,
Right.
something ridiculous that's just now under your umbrella? Hold up. That doesn't feel right. No, but instead they're just focused on Call of Duty when they're apples to apples going to do that. Well, again, like you said, most likely with the Destiny game. And it's just like,
And
how can you be so hypocritical?
I'm surprised it hasn't been brought up more in this case, and I'm not on a business legal team, so, I mean, take that for what it's worth, but when Microsoft bought Bethesda, they said, and I think it was Satya Nadella that said it, CEO of Microsoft, that when they acquire a company, they do it not only for their existing product, but also for their knowledge base.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, I'm sure a lot of the existing Activision IPs are going to stay along, but you get that whole talent pool from a massive company, technically 3 massive companies, that you can, like, have them cross work on other projects. So, like, not only are Activision games going to stay on there, but they're also making all these promises to bring certain Xbox games to other platforms, and those are just gonna be better now.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, I don't know, I guess it's the 2 heads are better than 1 philosophy. Like, right now, if they stay siloed, I think it's altogether bad for what could come out in the gaming industry.
Hmm.
It's, really just a theory, but I'm not saying that's necessarily what's going to happen, but based off of Microsoft's philosophies with acquisitions, like, it's going to be better for the industry if they do purchase this company,
Right.
one that's kind of flailing anyway.
So there's some interesting interesting uh predictions I've seen. We talked about Jez Corden wrote that article about like Sony should just want this to go through. They should stop kind of throwing this hissy fit,
Mhm.
and just kind of let it happen because Microsoft will continue to just be like the just kind of like the what's the word, non-confrontational, uh
Complacent?
yeah, where they're just gonna be like, yeah, sure, you can just have our games, and Sony continues to just withhold all of theirs, right?
Mhm.
Because for the most part, just looking at their track record, you should have high confidence in this stuff. Um, so we talked about what Jez had said then, and I've seen some other stuff. I saw somebody. Apologies, I don't know who said it. It could have been Jez again, honestly. Um, where I guess theoretically, because Activision Blizzard are obviously together, but and was it Activision bought Blizzard or Blizzard bought Activision?
Activision bought Blizzard.
So in the midst of all of this craziness, right, where it's like, oh, Sony only cares about Call of Duty, Activision could theoretically sell off Blizzard to Microsoft, and Microsoft could still get the volume there. Obviously, like Call of Duty is the crown jewel in all of this. We're not fooling anybody when you say Microsoft bought uh, Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. You really do just mean they bought Call of Duty because that's all anybody talks or cares about.
Mhm.
But they could still buy Blizzard. There's a lot of volume there, right? Um, and they can bring those games. They can still go into an agreement with Activision saying, hey, next 10 years, first off, your marketing deal with Sony's done. How about we have a marketing deal? Hey, for the next 10 years, how about we bring Call of Duty direct to Game Pass day one?
Mhm.
And hey, how about, we say fuck Sony regardless? Um, in some other way, DLC, right? Like you remember the whole DLC thing that was like a back and forth because at one point it was Xbox players got maps first, and then it
Yeah.
was PlayStation people for like 7 straight years or whatever would get them. Um, enter into all these like kind of like more seedy deals instead of just this outright acquisition where they're clearly trying to overhaul certain aspects of that company that we have talked about plenty on this podcast that could use a good refresh. And again, overall, do hopefully good for the industry and the workers of the Activision and Blizzard. But no, instead, let's leave Bobby Kotick on and let's do all these, you know, side deals instead, where Sony still gets fucked, if not harder, than if they just were to allow the deal to go through.
I I would be kind of interested in, like, seeing the gaming industry take on joint ventures like you see a lot in the automotive industry. Like, for example, um, at one point, I think it was in the '90s, Toyota and GM were both making each other's cars in a shared plant in California. So it's like that's a very vague business case, but I wonder if, Microsoft and Activision Blizzard could enter into a joint venture, basically a company that's separate from the two of them but controlled by each. And
Mm-hmm.
they say, "This is who makes Call of Duty now."
Sure. Well, and I mean, like, why couldn't Xbox technically um, loan some of their talent, right? We just saw what game just came out recently. Um, it wasn't a PlayStation exclusive, but like 80 people from Sony worked on the game.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to remember now what it was. But it wasn't a PlayStation exclusive. It's not even just like a console exclusive or anything. And I'm drawing a blank on what it was. But yeah, like they like loaned resources effectively to help create the game and like and finish it.
Yeah, or
What's this?
like what
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No.
Or like what's going on with Perfect Dark, allegedly, where now it's like basically Square Enix making it for
Hmm.
Xbox.
Right. Like, yeah, yeah.
But it's still an Xbox, like it's not a Square Enix game.
But
It's
they're
still gonna be that studio.
right. But they're effectively helping with the creation of it
Yeah.
by, yeah, exactly. Like, who's to say something like that can't happen? Again, literally, I mean, I don't have the example off my head, but I know I saw it, right? Like, I know Sony just did this with a game where
Yeah.
they provided so many resources to help finish it. So again, it when we first were talking about how this could like screw them over, we weren't even taking into consideration some of these things where it's like there's nothing effectively stopping these two from still going in on stuff together. Um, it just isn't buttoned up, and Microsoft doesn't technically have any true say over what it is that Activision Blizzard does. But you could still end up really hurting yourself, and you're burning so many bridges. I feel like you're just airing your dirty laundry out in the public, and everybody sees it. Everybody sees that you're not willing to like play nice. It's just baffling, really, the whole thing. Um, and then to further that, like I look at the stuff that like Brad Smith presented, and I just don't get how I just don't get how this is even a discussion. And I don't understand how we sit here and everything that I'm seeing is saying like I have a feeling this deal's gonna fall through. And I just like I can't wrap my head around it. It's just it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't see it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think this was big news for Microsoft. Um, I have a couple more points, but I think my main conclusion from this was like this is going to help this deal go through all the news.
I hope
Um,
so.
I think there's more confidence than ever. I mean, for me personally, and then like just from what I've been reading, like this is, I mean, this is a big deal. Getting Nintendo to sign the deal,
Mhm.
getting Nvidia to sign the deal. The
Mhm.
other one we didn't talk about was Tencent,
Oh,
which like
you just said that I think today. Yeah.
that's nuts. I mean, that's a company that you know realistically is the one should be in antitrust trial because of just what they own with mobile and ByteDance
Yeah.
um
They
and
Tencent could
in this
probably buy both Microsoft and Sony combined.
oh absolutely a couple times over. Um but you want to talk about competition, like Tencent really doesn't have any competition in the mobile place. This deal with Microsoft getting King
Mhm.
and Blizzard and, kind of Activision, like that introduces competition into the mobile space, which I'm sure is kind of like Tencent, you know, they're trying to cover their ass for something because someone's going to eventually come up and say, hey, what about the mobile space? And like,
Mhm.
how does Tencent have 98% of the market share? And now they'll be like, oh, well, we wanted this deal to go through. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I
look
mean,
over
that's
there.
right. Yeah, exactly. I think Tencent probably thinks this deal isn't going to go through. And they're just like, oh, well, we tried,
Yeah.
blame Sony. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like that was a huge competition step.
Definitely.
Um, we'll see. One of the things that you had said about like kind of breaking off Activision. So, Microsoft to get Blizzard and King. That is one of the CMA's concessions. I guess that's really the CMA's only concession is they said they would agree to the deal if Microsoft agrees to sell off definitely Call of Duty and I think World of Warcraft. They had to sell off those
That
IPs to another company.
that's so dumb.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Microsoft said then we're just not gonna go through with the deal.
Yeah.
Or no, they said they were gonna go through the deal regardless. They're just trying to get the FTC. They said they really don't give a shit about the European commissions.
Yeah. I mean, King and Blizzard would still be huge, you know? Not if they have to give up World of Warcraft. I don't think that should be like a forced, thing, right? Like uh the whole thing is just, and I think it's just like getting to the point where like more people, more like, people within the games industry need to just come out and like support Xbox. Really just like make it everybody against Sony. Um Granted, you know, so many companies have all these like deals and stuff that, nobody wants to spurn anybody, but just this entire like toddler tantrum that Sony has been putting on is just like so off-putting and just nonsense.
And, you know, another reason for Sony to let this go through is when Microsoft announced the purchase. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up current data. They said they were going to buy Activision at $95 a share,
Hmm.
and currently the share price is $77 a share. So, like, if I'm Sony, I'm saying, yeah, you know what, go ahead because you already, are overpaying for this company.
Hmm.
I'm sure as soon as the deal goes through, it would shoot up probably back to 95, but you don't know that for certain. But it's I don't understand what their price tag is here. Like,
Yeah.
I personally still remain at the stance that I hope Sony blocks this and Microsoft takes that $69 billion and buys everyone but Activision Blizzard
Right.
and signs deals with every other company but Sony to bring those games to those consoles or platforms.
Or at the very least, like just some like massive like fuck you. Like $69 billion is fuck you money, right? Like
Mm.
just like not even necessarily go out and buy a whole company, but just like this game comes to Xbox for a year. Pull that shit. Um like really like be petty, right?
Put it into knowing, like, that Sony does not have $69 million cash on hand.
Or
Put it
billion.
into huh?
Or billion.
What did I say, million?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, billion. Um, they don't have that cash in hand, like, put it into R&D to just, like, build something that Sony can't. Like, instead of matching consoles with them generation over generation, skip 2 generations, and then watch Sony try to squirm to put that together.
Yeah. Well, that gets kind of dictated by the tech that's out around everything.
Yeah, but
I think they should develop the first Xbox robot,
yes.
and it just plays the game for you. But it also will take you and drop you off at school.
Yeah, yeah, that would work.
That would be a big hit with parents. They don't care, Fuck it. Uh
Put it into a game with Kojima and all of the AI uses ChatGPT, so
yeah.
you can literally say whatever you want to them and they will respond.
Yeah. Um the like the awful, like, cynical part of me is like this deal could fall through a year from now. Sony could purchase Activision Blizzard for 69 billion. We'd go through this whole like song and dance again, and it would get approved and be fine.
Mhm.
Like literally, like that's how I feel. Like I feel like if the shoe were on the other foot, this thing would have gotten approved because somehow Sony has done such a good job. Or maybe that's it, right? Maybe it's because people look at it like Sony versus Microsoft when you need to look at it as Xbox versus PlayStation. I don't know. But like somehow PlayStation has managed to make themselves look like the little small guy. We're just tiny, you know? We can't keep up, you know? And it's like, no, you guys have been dominating and continue to dominate and have for years. The last hiccup you had, um, what the fuck was it? I don't think a single Xbox console has ever outsold any PlayStation console. I don't know if I'm remembering that right or not, but like the only hiccup that Sony has had is literally the PS3 by trying to have that start at like $800 and they still sold like 90 million of those or something stupid.
Mhm.
And then like the PS2 is the we just talked about it. It's the best selling console of all time. You know, the PS1 in the early days of video game consoles, their literal like their first console sold, you know, better than any other console at the time. Um, Yet somehow they're just like, yeah, we're just so small. Feel bad for us. It's
And
crazy. I don't get it.
why do their consoles sell so well?
Um,
That's right, because of the content.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, for years, right? Why did we buy PlayStation instead of Xbox? Because we wanted to play The Last of Us. Because we wanted to play Uncharted.
Yeah. And, even this past generation, literally the only reason I have a Series X is because that's what I was able to get. I don't
Right,
regret it at all,
right.
but my first choice was a PlayStation.
But also, if you stop and think about it, right? If you still had that's probably a tough question because I'm guessing you would actually still just take the Series X. But I don't know, like if you could go back and like thinking about like some of like the console exclusives that really call to you that are Sony, like is it still a hard decision at the very least? Would you say like, well, no, now that I've had the Series X, it's pretty easy that I would still go with the Series X again.
Yeah, I think I'm still at the point where, given the choice again, I would still do the Series
Okay.
X.
All right. I don't know. I thought maybe that could be another like boom, got him, you know. But
Well, it's like it's hard because
like think about it.
if it's
You could right now have a PS5 and only need to pay 550 for the PSVR 2. If you could go back in time and both are available and you take the PS5.
Mhm, but then I would have also had to pay $70 per game that I wanted to play on the PS5, whereas, like, God, I don't know. I've maybe spent less than $70 total on all of the, like, actual games I've paid for since the S Series X came out. Like, I guess I bought no, that's not true. I bought whatever the Madden was, Madden 21,
Unbelievable. You disgust
and
me.
and, Immortals: Phoenix Rising at launch, and, maybe 1 or 2 other games. I bought Cyberpunk, but I bought that for $15.
Right. Bargain.
But, I mean, I've had Game Pass. I mean, that just so much more suits how I can procure games at this point.
Definitely. 100%.
Maybe if I had to pay $70 per game, I'd actually sit my ass down and play them. But
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really trying to think which games I've paid $70 for. I think it's just Horizon, technically Miles Morales because I got it with the Spider-Man PS4 remaster.
Hmm. I don't think I've paid $70 for a game yet.
Well, it's only a matter of time now.
Yeah,
We're in the $70 range now, boyo.
sure are.
Uh yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else on this. What do you have anything else?
No, I think we're probably going to start getting a lot more news fast and furious about this, but
Yeah, so we'll see how, you know, how much we're covering it. Um just because I don't want to I don't want to get burned out because of this, right? Like, but I also never want to get to the point where we're so far behind. This kind of worked out perfectly because it was fairly quiet there for a while. So, this worked out pretty nice. But yeah, if there's anything substantial, expect us to talk about it, I guess is the way to always think about it. Um and there certainly was substantial stuff to talk about. We'll see. I I mean, I'm still hopeful this goes through, if not to save literally the people who are are there, right? Are at Activision Blizzard. Um all right. Well, some housekeeping stuff. Uh typically right now, we'd be jumping into our Last of Us review. I haven't watched the newest episode. Mike is caught up despite all the travel, so uh look at him go. So I believe we owe, was this most recent episode episode 6? Okay, so we
yes.
owe
Yes.
a 5, a 6, and a 7 review next week. That's what we'll do. And additionally, we have, I think, what's going to be a pretty jam packed episode next week. Because today, if you're listening to this on the release day, today Sony is doing a state of play that appears like it's going to be fairly beefy, I would say. Um, and then additionally on the 27th, I think it was. Let me just quickly double check that. Shame on me. I don't know what Pokemon Day is. I think it's the 27th. Um, there is a Pokemon Presents. So likely to be at least a few things to talk about from that. Um, I expect that to be fairly tame, and I'm assuming we'll have quite a bit to talk about from um, the PlayStation State of Play. Uh, but nonetheless, that should be a real fun episode next week with both of those events happening, and then again we'll have a review for 3 Last of Us episodes. The other thing that we didn't even get to talk about, that is fairly noteworthy, I would say, PlayStation VR2 is out as of today. Mike, help me out.
Oh, we're asking the wrong person.
Is it today? I think it's today. But they announced, Sony announced 10 additional games that were going to be in the release window. So 40 games at release. Not, that's not bad. Probably more than the PS5 and the series had on release. So, uh, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about there, as I believe during the state of play they're going to be announcing some other PSVR2 games. So, I look forward to next week. It should be a fun episode. Obviously, if anything major happens with the whole Activision Blizzard Xbox thing, we will be sure to touch on that as well. Mike, it's been so nice to talk to you again.
It's been nice to talk to you. Glad to be well, hmm, glad to be talking to you again.
Okay. All right. Why was that so hard?
Oh, because I was about to say glad to be stateside again, and then I just reconsidered. Um, anyway, yes, the PSVR 2 did come out today, Wednesday, February 22nd.
There you go. So
So
we
if you
might
want to skip, never mind.
so we might have some to talk about there with like reviews and stuff, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah, people repaying for Beat Saber, and
um, No, this is great. I got Mike Light, as I like to call him, Chris, last week. So uh, I definitely appreciate being able to talk to my number one, my boo, my co-host again this week. Um, who should the listeners share this with?
Uh, a mom.
A mom? All right, you heard it.
Yeah.
There's your call to action. Be sure to share this episode with a mom. We appreciate you guys sticking around and listening. Uh, leave us a rating and review if you can. Be sure to share with anybody else you feel, any other special person in your life. But, bonus points if they're a mom. And we will talk to you next week.
And what game coming out next week are you excited for?
Uh-oh, bringing it back.